Uh, yeah. You already know I'm trained to go. It's about 8 o'clock for my favorite show. All the latest news on your radio. Had to start a wave, then I changed the flow. Y'all know who the best is, the Urban Collective.
Alright. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Urban Collective Show. It is your girl, Bernadine Truth, alongside...
It's your man, NIC.
Yes. And so we are back with one of our favorite segments of our show, which is the celebrity guest interview. And I'm super excited to introduce you all to Alexander Padei, who is an amazing... What you said, yeah?
Is it A?
Oh, I was just like, wait, did I say it wrong?
I was like,
I was pronouncing
like,
it.
you already messed up the
I was
last
like,
name.
geez, I was practicing.
Hold on.
No, Alexander Padei, who's doing great work in the city of Boston. For those of you who don't know, Alexander is a Boston-based recording artist, entrepreneur, marketing consultant, MC, and DJ, as well as a recent Harvard grad. His musical influences and DJ sets span genres and generations, making him one of the most versatile DJs in the Boston area. Having run multiple businesses, including a nightlife/lifestyle brand and a marketing consultancy, and released multiple self-produced R&B hip-hop EPs, Alexander Padei is not only a fluent musician and DJ, but accomplished in many other professional dimensions as well. Further, his musical experience spans across a wide variety of genres, including popular genres like hip-hop, dance, top 40, and reggaeton, as well as niche genres like Punjabi, Persian, and Bollywood. All of this comes together, allowing him to be especially professional and useful as a team member for any nightlife, private, corporate, or charity event on multiple counts within and outside of music. His commitment to great musicality, professionalism, and growth has led to an already impressive career, despite Alexander having graduated just this year from college. Today, Alexander focuses on producing, recording, and performing hip-hop and R&B inspired original bangers, looking to artists as diverse as Pharrell, The Weeknd, French Montana, Ty Dolla $ign, Post Malone, Anderson .Paak, Kanye, Usher, and much more for inspiration. Y'all.
I really wrote the shit out of that.
I was like, this is the first time you heard it read out loud?
Yeah.
I can see you.
He's like, okay, I like what I wrote. No, it was good.
Yeah.
Truly, I have to do
graduated
justice.
this year? Okay.
This right here.
You're doing your thing.
It is old though, so
Okay.
a couple years.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, geez.
I'm like, how old are you?
You just got a diploma
Yeah,
and
no.
it's like, I'm dropping out all these albums. No, all right. So graduated a couple of years ago. Graduated a couple of years ago. I'm super excited to have you on the show. NIC and I were able to see your work in action,
yes.
which is dope. We were able to attend the F It We'll Do It Ourselves event.
You can
where
swear.
you had,
Fuck it, we'll do it ourselves.
You know, it's not my thing.
So there's a secondary version of that name. It's Fine, We'll Do It Ourselves. It's
Okay,
for
fine, we'll do it
sponsors.
That's
ourselves.
more
Okay.
confusing.
I like the first name.
Fine, we'll do it
Yeah, me too.
ourselves. Event where you had over 18 artists.
Yep.
Over 18 artists there. How many tracks did you say again were on this listening album?
24.
24 tracks.
Yeah.
More than 18 artists, 24 tracks produced, and these were all Boston-based artists.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
All Boston-based artists.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing.
Yeah, when I heard about that concept, I was like, that is very, very clever. That
Yeah.
is dope. Like, just to be able to bring all these people together to work, because you always hear
Yeah.
about the Boston stigma. So that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
No, it was a great event.
People not working together, and it was
Yeah,
what
and the
was
music was good.
amazing. The beats
Yeah.
did now.
Yeah, I gotta get into that.
I was like, listen. I mean, I know some people are looking at us like, what are they talking about? But like I said, so Alexander put on this amazing event. He brought amazing artists from Boston together, rappers, singers, and he had this great vision. But you know what? Let me let you talk about it. So tell us more about this vision of F It, We'll Do It Ourselves, and then we'll jump into some of these questions.
Yeah, I mean, like, the whole idea of the project was originally just like, I want to learn how to get better as an artist. You know, all the beats were made by me, save one.
Okay.
And I also mixed and mastered all the records myself.
Mhm.
And you know, from the first record to the last one, you know, there were some records that I had to like come back to and completely remake because it's been a year and a half of working on this record.
Okay.
But really that year and a half was just my self-development.
Right.
But I kind of realized like, hey, you know, if I'm going to self-develop myself, I might as well work with as many people as possible. And I might as well tell the story while I'm at it. So, you know, my goal was over the course of like a year, work with 30 artists. I think I may have actually, I think I hit that. I mean, that's not what's on the mixtape, but I think I've hit that in general.
Okay.
And it worked like a charm. I mean, I learned so much from all these people. And not just about songwriting, but also about producing by just like trial by error. You know, learning what works, learning how to connect with people's sounds. I mean, every single one of these records, again, save one or two, I invited them into the studio and said, you know, we're gonna make a beat from scratch together. And you know, before that, we're gonna talk about your styles. We're gonna talk about who you are as an artist and you know what you're interested in. And then you know we're gonna follow it up with writing a song right over it. So that process of creativity is just way more satisfying to me than like, you know, sending somebody some beats and like hoping that they respond.
Right.
And I think that, you know, that experience is stuck with them as well. Like, I mean, I've interviewed almost all of them, and that comes in as content for the exclusive experience, which is happening now. But with each of them, they all kind of said, look, you know, that collaborative effort was like so satisfying for me. For some of them, they'd never done it like that before at all. For some of them, they had done it, but like they just don't see it that often. And you know, again, you know, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. Like I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. Like I've always had this like weird need to sort of do everything myself. I've learned through this mixtape, actually the opposite is really important. You know, this team of people is what made it happen. And also just like the amount of work that goes into doing this, like just the shopkeeping, like, you know, just the fact that I gotta make, you know, like 18 clean versions of these tracks and, you know, get them out to DJs and stuff, like it's crazy. But I think it's worth it because even if I end up going in a non-independent route, or if, you know, I still go independent, but I bring in a team later, I'll have, you know, proven to myself that I have the work ethic to support, and you know, it's kind of like a proof of concept. You know, from a business standpoint, it's like entrepreneurship.
So one thing I did want to ask you is, so where did the idea originate from? Was it something that you always had in mind, or it's just people came together and you were like, you know what, let's do it?
Right. Did it come to you in a dream? You know, sometimes like you're just like, oh, that'd be dope. Like, let me make it happen.
I think that the idea came along when I was like halfway to 2/3 done with the music. Again, like I started out, like as in the music on the tape.
Okay.
So, you know, I'd come up with, we'd made like half of the records that ultimately won on the thing, and then I was like, wait, there's all these artists and I have all these sessions coming in, and it would be kind of dumb for me to not try to bring those people together and do something bigger. And I think that the moment when it really became like a collaborative, like an official collaborative project was when well, two things happened. First of all, I started this show called The Cold Call, where we started bringing artists in and making a record from scratch on camera in 5 hours. And we did 2 episodes of that. We've recorded 4, but near the release of the second, I started to realize that that documenting what is happening, documenting how the music was made, and sort of making the process of becoming an artist and the process of telling your story the same thing would save a lot of energy and make for a better story anyways. Because we were getting so much great response showing people how we were making records on the Cold Call. So then we had this idea to do a video shoot where we would actually do the video equivalent of a DJ mix. And that's now going to be the capstone of this project. And right around that time, we came up with the idea, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. And I think there was a situation where like we were supposed to do it at the Happy Place. And they actually canceled on us the day before. So I had to scrounge out and find a bunch of places like the day before around Boston. And the video shoot went better than it would have anyways, because it's more real. And there's just more interesting stuff going on. But I think that we just started connecting with the fact that like we could do all of it if necessary. It's not necessarily like always the smartest idea, but like if you need to start somewhere, then just start, do it. And you know, despite all of the hurdles, despite all of the people saying no, and a lot of people said no to the idea of doing this mixtape.
Like a lot of artists you wanted to invite onto the project, or people who you wanted to be part of your team to make it come into fruition?
Couple artists, and then a couple of people, like potential team members.
Okay.
But like it's interesting because although there were a few people who said no, those people actually came back and said yes.
That's good.
Later on. And at first I thought, oh, well, you know, it's that whole like 10% idiot tax kind of thing, whatever they say. But I was like, you know what, maybe that's not even true. Maybe there's a much more positive way of looking at this because, you know, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who considers himself an entrepreneur, my job is to visualize to people enough that they say yes. So if they're saying no, then I haven't done my job. And I started to notice how, you know, you build this out from like something on a piece of paper that you wrote down, like, oh, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves, that could be cool.
Yep.
So now there's actually some stuff behind it, you know, there's some effort that's put in, and you like develop that idea and you do the first video shoot. Like I remember these artists, you know, they were all there at the shoot together, and one of them said, this is the first time that I really recognized this was a mixtape, that this was a collaborative, like it feels like a collaborative experience for the first time now. And so I think that to answer the question, you know, how did you come up with it? It really feels as though, you know, it came together in stages. You know, the ideas started as very like general, just half-baked thoughts, but I just stuck with them and then kept on hitting at them and kept, like I write in a journal every day. So, you know, I was writing new ideas down and coming up with like solutions like, well, if I wanted to do this, how would I do it, you know? And eventually it was, you know, I created this like PDF with like a whole marketing plan that I presented to all the artists to sort of say, hey, this is what we would do. I came up with a budget. I tried to make that budget really accessible to the artists because like I'm not trying to make money off of this. I'm really just trying to do something dope. So like none of this like, hey, you know, I'll do this, but you have to pay me like $1,000 just cause. It's like, these are what the costs are. This is what I think is going to happen. And this is like the minimum amount that I could take so that we just kind of come even and then be able to come away from this with something dope. So the more collaborative the project got, the more clear it became that like it had to be a mixtape.
Right.
And I kind of stumbled upon it.
And included a lot of different visions and perspectives, which I think is like phenomenal because again, you have so many artists that you collaborated with. And you know, and listening to you too, like you said, this was like a process and a vision that developed as you were in the middle of the process and having these ideas. Earlier you mentioned something about, you know, whether or not you go independent or you have people on board with you. Has this experience, I guess, inspired you to be more definite in a direction you'd like to go in, or are you still really just open and like to where life takes you as far as like, will I continue to be an independent producer and artist doing this work, or will I actually bring other people onto this team to work with me moving forward?
Yeah, it's hard to answer that with like you know, this or that, because it feels like there's a range, you know, there's a spectrum of choice in that. So, you know, people say like Chance the Rapper, you know, he's an independent artist, but like it's not like he's just alone, you know, doing his thing. You know, he has an extensive team, and that feels to me like a happy medium, let's say. You know, I think like labels do certain things really well, they do certain other things not so well at all, and it's a question of like what it is that you want to do. For me, like a huge part of this is data. So I think about data a lot, and the way that I think about it is instead of like putting my video on YouTube and then hoping it sticks, or putting my stuff on Spotify and then hoping it gets on a playlist, or paying somebody money to like put views on it, I actually use Facebook video and Instagram video, which sounds super backward. It's like, why aren't you on TikTok? Why aren't you on this and that and the other thing? And I'll get there. But the thing about Facebook is that like you can literally define any audience you could possibly want, percent or more. And then you can have Facebook target those people with your second video, and then a third video. So the people who watch the first video, at least 50%, they get the second one. Why? Because those people have demonstrated an interest in what you do by watching the video. So if you do the first video, the second, the third, and the fourth, you know, instead of looking at it as, well, I already released this music, it's now old content, you have this entire world of people who haven't heard about who you are. So the content's new to them.
Yep.
So create 4 pieces of content that are all really dope, and then, you know, just work the angles of conversion and all that stuff. And that's permanent right there. Anytime that you want to make new fans, you can just press a button and it'll push them through this pipeline. By the time they get to that 4th video, they're ready to sign to your mailing list or to, you know, maybe buy a piece of merch if you get to like the 8th video. So like, that's a process of developing fans that I think it's been proven time and time again, like streams and stuff. Like if you're going for the streams, the reason why you're going for the streams is because you hope to use that as leverage to get a record deal. There's no other reason for that, because it's not going to get you a career on its own. For me, like what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to learn how to build relationships with fans. And you know, that's not going to just be music. It's going to be a lot of video content. It's going to be a lot of storytelling, and so on and so forth. And just, it's like, I haven't even gotten hit many numbers yet, and I've already seen people kind of going crazy about it. Like, you know, I got a call from somebody at Warner Music saying, hey, I saw the cold call, it's sick. I want to work with you to try and like finish out the season, teach you how to really do it right, because there's some really, you know, there's some rough areas, there's some formatting issues, you know, maybe the interview's too long, maybe the editing isn't done that, because I edited it myself. Like I have a videographer who's a partner on the project, but then I edit the whole thing. And it's like, you know, I can see that you're willing to learn. I can see that you're willing to take risks. If you continue to do so, there's going to be a payoff at the end of the
Sounds good.
So the more autonomy to be independent is
like,
there.
Also, with the project, I know when I was speaking to you that evening, I was like, oh, so when is it being released? And you're saying, you know, you're releasing the different tracks by this week and this week. So what made you come up with that idea of that release cycle?
You know, I can't take full credit for it because I'm somebody who just loves to like learn new stuff. So there's a website that every artist should know about called Indiepreneur.io, and Indiepreneur it's a combination of indie artist and entrepreneur. And all that they do is teach artists various like marketing skills to actually build relationships with fans. And I found like the original idea for this, where like you can develop relationships with Facebook through them, and then that got me thinking, because it kind of stopped at, hey, like this is how you could do it for like your album, right? But then it was like, okay, well, how could I combine what they're talking about with a collaborative project with a bunch of other artists? So what we're doing now is, you know, we're putting 1 record out per day, and we're creating these content pages, and you know, all of them are Facebook pixeled, which means that we're tracking the traffic of who's actually going to the pages. And you know, at the end of this process, you know, we'll have had each page, and then we'll have the capstone, like the big video project. You know, you do the video, and then the hope is that we can then like invite the people who watch that video further down into the experience. So we put the video on Facebook video. You know, we do some smart targeting, because you know, we already know like who likes the content I've done so far, because we put out a few videos. So we use what we have as an educated guest to really get started there. We target people in Boston as well as people around the world, kind of like a 50-50 split, you know? And then, you know, you have this piece of content that's unique. Like, it's not like other music videos, you know, because it's literally like 9+ music videos in one, plus document. Like, it was kind of like the Beyonce Coachella thing. Like, that's kind of what I was trying to do. So it's a really in-depth piece of content that tells a story, and we hope that people are interested in that story and like they want to get involved. So, you know, we have like the recap video from the listening party. If y'all saw that, you know, I actually included some video of me making the throne that was at that party, to just give a little bit more documentary experience. But then we also have like previews of the videos, how we made the videos. We have video of like how we made the actual records that's kind of built in with the cold call. In fact, one of the songs on the mixtape is for the cold call, episode 3. And that record, you know, it's like an amazing conversation where they're talking about the issues that women face in the industry, like producers that say they want to like work with them, but they're just trying to hook up with them. And they wrote a song about that, and it's actually a dope R&B record. Like, you know, that's the kind of thing that I think people are gonna really grapple onto, and then that's how you're gonna. I believe that's how we're gonna get people to come to the show and really develop a relationship with all these artists.
Well, I appreciate all that you've outlined too, because it's very much about the experience, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just about the final product. We talk about life being about a journey, right? And not just focusing and inspiring people, encouraging people to not look at the end result.
Yeah.
So while the end result for you is this track, really where it sounds like a lot of your heart and your soul lies is in the process and everything that happens to develop that track and to inspire artists to develop that track and to produce that beat. And I think that that's very positive and that's very inspirational. Can you talk to us about maybe some challenges and hurdles you've had to overcome to keep you focused, you know, or to keep you going, maybe when you've been like, somebody else probably would have walked away and been like, nope, this is just too much.
I mean, hurdles every day, you know. I think, I mean, my habit, so like, I'm somebody, like, I'm a creative, right? And I'm a creative who decided, okay, I know I'm a creative and I know that I don't want to do like the legal stuff. I don't want to do the business, like, but I have to. And I just came to that conclusion. It's like, there's just no way, like, nobody's going to do it except me. And that sort of started, like, I went on all these tangents where, like, I would spend literally 6 months learning how to do something, and I'd almost like lose the purpose of why am I here learning this thing? But I'd get obsessed over learning how to do that thing, and that's one of my biggest challenges. Is like sometimes I go on tangents, and sometimes I bite off too much that I can chew as well. And you know, one thing that's been great about this tape has been, you know, now, like it's like I said I was going to do it, and I have 18 people who are like trusting that I'm going to do it, right? And so it's like, damn well better do it. You know what I mean? Like,
they're looking at you
it's like do or die, right?
Yeah.
And I think that was like a really, it was a deliberate decision. It was like, like, yo, like if I'm going to take this seriously, like I gotta just get out there and risk failure in front of people and risk my reputation over
risk
this.
failure in front of people.
Exactly.
Because you're working with people that you don't necessarily know or anything like that. You're getting to know.
And don't even know each other.
Exactly.
And that, I mean, that experience, like, one thing I've noticed about pretty much all the records is, like, every time I've worked with somebody new, there's been like a 2-hour period where we haven't got it yet. You know, because I'm making the beat on the fly, like literally just racing. And for some reason I always race. I don't know why, but like I it's like I don't want to waste their time or something. But like I'm racing to get the head nod. They're like, okay, like here we go. Like, stop right there. That's it. You got it. And that has been a really important element of maintaining persistence, I guess, because it's like, you know, just because it isn't working now doesn't mean you should stop. And I like learned that lesson 24 times for, you know, like on this mixtape, like every single time. And you know, I'm also a DJ as well, and I've noticed that like even today, like when I get up to DJ, I have this like flutter of I don't know if it's insecurity or if I'm just nervous or whatever, but it's like, oh, like, am I really that good? Like, am I really gonna rock this crowd? But then every time I do, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's like, because I don't come in with the assumption that I'm gonna win. It's like, I gotta put in the work.
Right.
And I also don't come in with the assumption that I'm fundamentally like talented. For me, like I've had periods of like 3 years where I was in college and I wasn't really practicing and I didn't make much progress. And then I had a 1 year period where I made like twice as much progress as the previous 3 because I put in way more hours of work. And you know, I had like Tone Terra, he was there at the listening event and he was like, yo, like, that's crazy. Last time I heard you play anything was like a year ago and your shit is transformed.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Like,
real growth is real.
Exactly.
And it's amazing that you have people who can tell you that. Right? Who've been part of your beginning, middle, and end.
So with the records, which one was your favorite track to produce out of the songs? Yeah. And do the
and
whole
why?
thing. Yeah.
Don't just say why.
Wow. Yeah, I gotta think about that because there's like too many. it might be like, it might be I Don't Give a Fuck. It might be.
Which track is that?
That's the second one.
Second one?
That's the second one on the project. It wasn't the second one that we made, but I made it with, Wine Prop. I'd made a beat. It was like a rough beat, and it wasn't where it needed to be. But Wine Prop came in. He's like, "Yo, I got this like hilarious video of, oh God, who was it? Somebody who should not be rapping was rapping, like West Coast style." He's like, "Yo, this is hilarious," and I want to like do something like this. And I was like, I think I actually have the perfect thing. And I took this beat and like I flipped it, and it was super, super simple. I mean, that beat has like 2 sounds on it. You know, that the 808 there's not even an 808 and a kick. Like the 808 is the kick.
Okay.
You know, I mean, like it's like
You know, I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what an
Yeah.
808
No,
is.
but, like,
I don't know what a 2 kick
it's,
is.
you know, it was one of those
What you
things,
saying?
like, it was one of those
Right.
things where, like, I found the 2 perfect sounds, and then I literally just, like, recorded myself. I was like, I don't give a fuck about, and then I pitched that up, like, an octave, and then that was, like, the beat. And, you know, it was, like, totally effortless, you know what I mean?
I definitely remember hearing this one.
Yeah, it's the one that's like, I don't give a fuck about none. Try to make me feel bad, you don't got none.
I really do remember hearing this
Yeah,
one.
and you know the reason why I liked producing that one is just because like we were just playing around, like we were just at play the whole time, and you know, there's the producing side and then there's like the engineering side, right?
Yeah.
So you know we produced this thing. He did his verse, I did my verse, I came up with that hook, and then we had these other 2 artists come in later, Ocho and Deco Fam Stolen, and like immediately like the energy was there, so that just stuck out in my mind, and you know it makes me think about like my relationship, for instance, with YN, because you know we've made like some 7 records or something. Right. He was one of the first people that I started working with consistently, and you know that just from record to record to record has been a very like transformational experience, right? And you know now we're at a point where like we're able to really like lock onto each other's styles very, very quickly. So I think that record just represented a lot of progress. It represented a very developed collaborative relationship, and that's why I sort of look to that. It's just like everything else was built, like it's built upon all the other sessions. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, it tells a story. And speaking of telling stories, right? So you said that this wasn't the second. So it's the second track on this tape, but it wasn't the second one that you worked on. So for your mixtape, and then for anybody listening who's like trying to figure out, well, what sign do I put first, second, third, at the end, in the middle, right? What do people need to think about and consider when they're developing an entire album or mixtape or track as far as organization of the tracks?
That's a good question. I might not be the right person to ask this question, because I mean this album is like an anthology.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, you know.
What do you mean by that for our listeners?
Like we're on some American Horror Story shit. Like seriously, like each record stands alone as a really substantial project. But I think one thing that like it was almost easy. It was really easy to organize this project. We did like the brighter turn up tracks to really bring the right energy at the beginning, and then we went into some more introspective stuff with some R&B. We went into like trap soul, you know, taking inspiration from like, you know, Bryson Tiller, Division, The Weeknd, things like that. And then, you know, we kind of went into a more island reggaeton side of things. And, you know, like for me, it was just like, okay, like let's call this like 3 different parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, whatever. But the emotional content of it just kind of rolled off the tongue a little bit, because somehow like it just so happened that the stories that were being told, I think it was the choice of the artists, really. I really do think it was the choice of the artists, because there was a creative openness with all of them, and it's almost by necessity. I chose people who are maybe they're like known locally, but nothing more than that. You know, I really worked with independent artists and said, like, we're going to do this in a really unusual way. And almost by virtue of the way that the music was made, each song, in terms of the content, was really positive. It wasn't like talking down on people, like it wasn't angry, like each record is positive in its own way. And so they each managed to fit. Whether it be like, you know, the first record is called Hide 'Em, and it's kind of about Ashley Moore. She wrote this thing about like being this girl that like guys notice in the club, and then like the guy's girl notices him noticing her in the club. And it's kind of like, okay, you know, if you're gonna be angry at me for this, then not my fault, you know, like I'm gonna live my best life anyways. And then, you know, I don't give a fuck. It's not like actually saying I don't actually give a fuck about anything. It's like, you know, I only give a fuck about the stuff that matters. And you know, so it's very self-empowerment oriented stuff. It's almost like, you know, a little bit of like Chance the Rapper in there, you know. And then on the relationship side with the sort of R&B stuff, and to a similar extent with the like reggaeton stuff, you know, it's again, there's like self-empowerment in each of these records. There's like, we're really trying to go for positivity here. So I don't know, like if you're coming in to make a record that has a message, and that's like the first thing on your mind, then that'll be a much bigger problem. But that wasn't the point of this project. Like the point of this project is culture, you know, front and center. Like that's it. You know, I'm a DJ. There's a lot of DJ energy in this. That's why we're making the video the way we are. It's an anthology because like I'm an open format DJ, so like I've been listening to all these different types of music and playing them, and my relationship is with a crowd, like first and foremost.
As it should be. Do you know how many DJs play music they like, and the audience is like, I'm not moving to this?
So, with you being and saying like you produced most of the records on the mixtape, did you ever run dry and, you know, the well just went dry, and, you know, and if you did, where did you get your creative inspiration from?
That's a good question. You know, from a production standpoint, like I actually think, so I did not really have any points like that with this record.
Wow, okay.
Because I think that the hard work was more so like scheduling these artists in, you know, being consistent with my schedule and all that stuff, and like following up to make sure that we actually get them in the studio, and like leveraging each session to sort of get somebody else in and say, hey, like we already got these guys in. So it's more like the process of this, I imagine, is like DJ Khaled if he also produced the beats and was also on records.
Yeah, basically.
And Diddy on everything.
And so like I would Diddy on everything. Yeah, like that'd be sick. So like I wasn't seeking to like tell everybody like, yo, like, this is my story. Like listen now. I was really trying to like experience how these artists work. And it's kind of, and I also, by the way, like I have I have 50 records like or something like that in the vault that aren't on this project, of varying qualities obviously, but we also like basically have enough to put out like at least an EP, if not an album, like the next day if you wanted to. And that is maybe a little bit more focused in terms of like the story and all that stuff. But I mean, this is what this record is. It's the story of the music being created. Like that is the story for me. And because I had a new artist in the studio and like new configurations of creativity and new ways of doing things each session, there's no way to run out of ideas because it was always fresh. And I was always receiving like different energy each session.
Yeah, because I can imagine that having all those people working with you every night's a different vibe. So did you ever go in there and have like a predetermined kind of idea of, okay, I'm working with these 2 people or these 3 people tonight, this is what I'm trying to go forward? Or did you just basically just come in and start?
Just came in, like I did that deliberately. I was like, because sometimes people, they'd be like, It was funny. The last session I did is really great dude actually named Young Dapper. We just connected, and he was like, "So what do you want to do? Like, what you got?" I was like, "I don't have anything for you, man." And he was like,
Looking at you
"Word."
like,
He was like,
oh,
"What?"
got me here.
We scheduled this like last week. Man.
I don't know.
Anyways, and that's like a problem I have. Like, I never have beats for anybody because whenever I make a beat, I write a song to it, like right then and there. But I was like, it's all good. Like, we're gonna make something from scratch, and that was an example where it took me unusually long to like get it, to like come up, and like he has a very cool style, like musically, like he's dope. The way that he writes, it was really fresh for me because he was just, he's like going for it, like like just coming up with stuff, harmonizing, like very, very organic way of doing things. And it's actually similar to the way that I do things, because when I make the beat, like I won't even write stuff down. I'll just start singing and then I'll like line by line, because I'm the one engineering, so I can literally say, okay, do it again, okay, do it again, do it again. And then I'll just be like, oh yeah, she's my girl, I want to do it, and I'll come up with the line right there, and then I'll move on to the next one. That, I think it was a bit of a it was one of those moments like, like what, like you don't have anything for me? And I said, well, this is actually a deliberate choice, I want to really understand who you are as an artist. And I'll say this, like a lot of people have said to me, like I've gotten like comments on social media recently, and I did not think this was gonna happen, like, oh, like, hey, like Red Shades, let's say, like, who do you think, like her fans will say, who do you think's the best producer in Boston? And she's like Alexander Padei, and then like this guy and that guy. And I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy.
Like, I made the list.
Yeah. Hey. And I like a ton of respect for her, and like she like understands producing very well. Like she's no joke. She also knows how to like do video work. Like I think she has a video like not production degree, but like a directing degree or something like that.
Okay.
Like so she understands like these things, and she's one of those people who is multi-talented too. So it was like a huge honor. And I, if I were to guess why, it would probably be because I forced myself to be very uncomfortable for like 2 hours or more with all of these artists. And I think that was time well spent. I think that those 2 hours were the point of this mixtape.
I think that's amazing too, is you're like, again, you're developing the growth of all of these artists, but you're also developing the growth of yourself, right? Like you said, you get fixated on something, you jump into it, you focus on it, you pick up on new traits, new skills, new perspective. I want to go back to a comment you made earlier on in our interview, and you're talking about support, and you're like, listen, you've worked with a particular person from the beginning in many ways, and it brought me back to your event where your mom was in the audience, and she was, she wasn't just like in there your mom was vibing
in there, yo.
She was like, her hands were up, she was like rapping and singing with the tracks. So talk to me about what support looks like, so again, this is like, she was really, but she was going hard. I remember seeing her on my left, and she's like, I was like, go ahead, Ma.
Yeah,
and then when I walked into the space,
really?
and I remember hearing that. She, when you introduced her, or somebody introduced her and said that. And when I walked into the event, she was just like, I'm Alexander's mom. And I was like, I don't even know who Alexander is, but it's great meeting you. So, but talk to us about what support looks like, because I think oftentimes in the industries and for entrepreneurs, we often look to other entrepreneurs who get us and who can support us, and there's certainly value and a necessity in that. But what about people who aren't in that industry and in those fields? Like, what types of support do you need or do you have that also propels you forward in that work?
Yeah, it's huge for me. Shout out to like a great book called Think and Grow Rich, which it's kind of become like, no matter what problem somebody comes to me with, I recommend that book. It's an old book, 1920, something like that. This guy Napoleon Hill was close friends with Andrew Carnegie, who was like the original American mogul. And the guy sort of said to him, look, I think that you should interview every rich person on earth and figure out what they have in common in terms of process. in terms of what they actually do, what their habits are, how they think, how they develop their thought process and develop their plans and everything. And like somebody who I really was just, I wasn't even that close friends with, I just knew him, came up to me and was like, hey, I want to read this book with you and I want to do this thing called masterminding. What's masterminding? I want to meet with you once a week and have a 1 hour conversation where we spend 30 minutes talking about what you're trying to achieve. So you like give a speech for 20 minutes about what it is you were trying to do and how it relates to your goals. 10 minutes of him critiquing me. And like very just
was this like a peer or was it?
It was just a peer, yeah. It was like somebody that I'd met a couple times, like at some events, you know. And then we grabbed lunch, reconnected, and sort of hit it off a little bit. And he called me. He was like, "Hey, I want to do this," and I was like, "You know what? Like, fuck it, let's try it." And because he had done it before, and he was like, "Yeah, like I was like in Miami. He's from Miami, not really living my best life, and then like I used this process to like get into law school, and then to get into like Harvard University as well, like through my own just like self." Pushing my own, you know what I mean? So it was all about the being held accountable, basically, you know, and feeling you have somebody who's really got your back, because the entire relationship was predicated on helping each other do better. And it's a completely 100% balanced, you know, no matter what they say, you're not going to judge them, you're just going to give them the best advice possible. And there's no like you know, sometimes friends hurt each other, like, you know, and then they have like biases, they want to get them to do a certain thing, like it was totally unbiased. And it's advice you can trust, right? And then I kind of just blew that up and like found another 3 people that each represented a different side of what I'm trying to do. And I was like, okay, what are my weaknesses? What do I need to know? Here's somebody who understands like legal stuff. Here's somebody who understands video. Here's somebody who understands sales skills and just will keep on going and keep on grinding. And I sort of said, hey, like I know that you've been trying to work on this thing. We'll talk about this thing you're trying to work on for 30, and then we'll talk about this thing I'm trying to work on for 30. And we'll just keep on pushing each other. We'll give each other homework and so on. So again, like it was just like, if you look at some of the like the craziest success stories in the world, whether they be in or out of music, like those people that like the top priority for them is, where's my team? Where am I going to find this information? Am I going to find it in a course? Am I going to find it through another individual? Am I going to go to the library and just read books? Like, because that's the thing, like the only, when I say I don't believe in talent, I really mean that. I do not believe in talent at all, because I was a talented cellist for 18 years and it went nowhere because I didn't practice, period, end of story. And like, but like seriously, like I could learn an entire book's worth of songs in like a week if I wanted to. But the only reason I was doing it at the time was because I was doing what my parents wanted me to do. And there's all those like, you know, insecurities that come with that and resentments that come with that. And I had to take a step back from music and come back to it on my own terms. And then when I did, it's like, okay, now I have a reason to practice. Now I have a reason to come back to it. And now I have a reason to build skills around this thing that I'm trying to do. It's like, now I'm going to force myself to learn the marketing because I care about it. I should do that. And so like, you know, in terms of like being able to really get things done, you know, all of my successes have happened when I was being consistent with the habit of meeting with these people and being consistent with the habit of writing and reflecting. And, you know, I have like a list of like 30 sort of standard questions that I ask myself that basically like measure up my weaknesses. And I do that once a month. But when I don't do it once a month, then I fuck up. And it's just clockwork, you know what I mean? So I think that's what it is. Like there's a process that actually exists that will kind of like attract success to you, because you'll be in the right mindset, because you'll be growing, because you'll know what you don't know, and you'll create a plan that'll actually be accurate because it's based off of accurate information.
So going back, I want to get to know you a little bit more. So what made you, what school did you go to as far as college and postgraduate, if you did do postgraduate degrees or anything like that, and did that attract you towards music, and what attracted you towards music?
Yeah, man. I went to Harvard University for undergrad. I haven't done any post-grad.
Okay.
I did sociology. I actually came in for engineering.
Okay.
But
What type of
then,
engineering?
I was gonna do like electrical,
Okay.
computer, or something like that.
Okay.
And the reason for that was because I thought that it would make me like useful. Like I wanted to be able to problem solve like an
Yeah.
engineer.
Yeah.
But within like 2 days, I was just done with
I
engineering.
don't want to do it.
I was like,
Yeah.
it is
Very
not gonna work.
different.
I was like, I need to have like a love life. I need to fucking like, you know, like, I need to party. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
only
I-
thing is your books with that one.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, I
It's a lot of
remember
work.
my sophomore year, I had no life. Well, my junior year, so no life. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, but you know, the interesting thing is like, so my first year, like I didn't do well at all in the first year. I was in an a cappella group, and that was kind of the highlight of my first year.
Oh, wow, nice.
And that a cappella group actually tours. They tour around the world.
Okay.
They do 3. They do one in Bermuda, one in across the U.S., and then they do like one across like 15 different countries.
I think this acapella group has a YouTube channel.
The Crocodillos.
Yeah. I was
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
They're like the oldest collegiate a cappella group
Okay.
in the world. And so that was crazy because it's like, okay, now you're practicing 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. You know, you're touring, like you're getting on planes and, you know, walking up hills with no air conditioning over the summer, like all that stuff, you know, you actually know what that means now. And so that was a highlight, but I also, I thought that I was going to be a banker.
Okay.
And like I remember taking this, it was like an Excel spreadsheet course or something over the weekend or whatever. And I like fell asleep. That's loud. Fell asleep in like 30 minutes. It's like a 6-hour course or something, you know. And I just wasn't doing well. And I think I wasn't being true to myself during that period. So.
Were you like searching more for like what financial side of things, or?
Yeah, well, exactly. Like, because I went to private school too. So I went to Phillips Exeter, which, you know, is like the Harvard of high school, basically, right? So, you know, they're pushing you to get into the best college.
Yeah.
And of course, my parents are pushing me. Like, my dad is, it's my stepdad. He's an immigrant. He's from Nigeria.
Okay.
And, you know, he just like mowed lawns for like 5 years and then like turned that into a business, became the leader of his church community. It's like the classic, like what every African immigrant could possibly want.
The
Like,
American
you know,
story.
like he did that thing. You know, my mom, you know, she's white, and you know, she's like, her parents are like a little bit more conservative, right? So there's like a lot of like diversity in this household, right? But both of them shared like one thing in common, which was like, you need to get into an Ivy League school kind of thing. You know, it's just like, okay, I did. Now what? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens a
It's
lot.
like, you made me do
Yeah, you
this.
made me do this, exactly.
But like, then
But
what?
now
Yeah.
and like, I just didn't, you know, I was lying to myself for a long time because I didn't like, I mean, I like economics, but not enough to turn it into a degree.
Yeah.
Let alone a profession.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So, and for today, it's like the idea of like, you know, living in New York, doing a bunch of coke, and just like, you know, being a banker from like 7 in the morning till like 11 or whatever it is.
Yeah, you really gotta love it.
Like you really, yeah. And one of the interesting things, because I did sociology, so now I'm like learning about how ideas are
Control the
created
environment.
and all that. So like, I actually started reading about why banking is so attractive, because what they do is their branding is super on point. So they come to like Ivy League campuses, right? And they basically say like, you're the best of the best. Like you are like almost a god, but only if you join us. And well, you know what I mean? Like people who are just like the creme de la creme of society, like, do this. And you know, there's this selection process that's like so brutal. It's like more selective than getting into the college in the first place.
Exactly,
Like,
it's like a big society, basically, make it. Yeah.
And then they work you to the bone
Yeah.
and you know, it's like 33% of people that do it like leave before 2 years or something. It's crazy because
Get burnt out.
they get burnt
Stress,
out, and
anxiety, all of that.
and it's almost like they're not really doing anything for the sake of anything other than the money.
Right.
Literally,
Literally, it's money,
about
making money,
Yeah.
making more money.
Like not even for the client
Right.
to an extent. It's like it's for
Yeah.
the company
Yep.
and for you. So like, And you see a lot of people who like they leave and then they take like a 3 times pay cut in order to start a business, but they're happier or whatever. So, so I just failed really hard. Like I actually failed 1.5 classes at Harvard the first year, and they're like, okay, you got to take a year off and figure your shit out. So I did that, and I worked in like fashion retail for the year. And I started like really practicing DJing like 3 hours a day. You know, I just came back home. I was like 19, so I couldn't go to bars, although I did figure out how to get into hotel bars. I was sick. So I spend my time like at hotel bars, should not be there, having crazy conversations with like 30-year-olds or whatever, and then I would go home.
At that time, that was
at
old.
the time.
I was just like, please.
Yeah, no, like at the time it was old. No. But yeah, so like did that and then came back and I was like, okay, you know, I have a better sense of what it is that I need to do, and started doing that, and it's like grades go up, way happier. You know, I started a nightlife company, started DJing parties like crazy, started throwing events, threw probably like 200 parties, something like that, since when I started that, and you know, started putting the money towards a studio. You know, like everything I did, like I got a laptop, I got headphones, you know, started buying plugins. It actually hasn't been that long actually since I bought like my first mic. I think it's only been 2 years. But you know, it's interesting because I was making beats and they weren't that good, and you know, doing remixes, and it was actually more so like EDM kind of stuff. And when I started DJing, it was also more like EDM stuff. But then I met Tone Terra, a couple other guys, and I think I had an opportunity to open for Clinton Sparks, Boston born producer, and they were kind of like, yeah, you can't play EDM tonight. You got to play some straight hip hop. So I spent like a week. I just like took the top 100 tracks at the time and then just like mixed them until I could figure out how to do something kind of interesting. And from there, my love for hip hop just like never going back kind of thing. Like I was just like, yeah, EDM, like that's cool, but like, you know, like, I want some culture, you know what I mean? Like, I want some meat in them bones, god damn. You know what I mean? So like, but you know, that, and then I, you know, learned public speaking, and then that turned to me learning how to rap. And you know, the singing, I'd always been singing, so that was kind of easy. Got a mic. I had a girlfriend for a year who was like the consummate songwriter, literally the consummate song. Like she was just on her phone writing songs, and I was kind of like, I could probably do that too. And I started writing songs myself, and those songs were probably terrible at the beginning, and then I just kept on doing it, and eventually, you know, I started getting better. Like, I was like, oh, you're kind of getting good now. Like, this music is not terrible anymore. So that has been the process. You know, it's just been like trying things out, and usually it's like meeting somebody too. Like you meet somebody who kind of opens your mind up to like, oh, I could actually do that. And so after like the third or like fourth thing that I learned how to do creatively, it was like, well, if I learned how to do all these things, then I could probably learn how to do all these things too. You know, if I wanted to. But it is a matter of wanting to. It always is a matter of wanting to. But the human brain's a beautiful thing, and like it can learn anything. And there's stories of, you know, who's that guy? Henry Ford. Like he didn't even have. I think he stopped at the 5th grade. And there's a story of him. Like somebody tried to take down his reputation. They were trying to say, oh, well, he's a simpleton. Like he's not legit, right? It's like a, you know, classic like rap battle almost, you know, like Pusha T on that Drake shit, you know, basically, and they'd be like, yo, like, you know, like he doesn't know shit, like he doesn't, and there was a point, and it was like came to this like trial or something where he said something along the lines of like, why would I bother knowing the distance between like Alberta and Boston when I literally could just call I have like a button that I can press. Somebody shows up in a cold sweat and they'd be like, well, what can I do for you? And it's like, tell me the distance between, you know what I mean? Like, so that's what it is, because the knowledge doesn't matter. It's what you do with it. And if you're trying to get something done, then like you kind of have leeway to stop stressing about the details, because it's like, okay, what's the most efficient way for me to figure out how to do this, to find the information? Am I going to pay somebody to do it? Am I going to offer somebody a cut to do it? So for me, there's this weird medium where I do obsess. I definitely obsess over the details. But then there comes a point where it's like, okay, I've proven that I can obsess over the details, that I can be creative in this way. So now I'm gonna let go of that, and I'm gonna like move on to bigger and better things.
And let it flow.
And let it flow. So, I mean, one thing that's interesting for me is like guys like they say, oh, DJ Khaled, like he doesn't do anything. It's like no, like that guy does a lot. Yeah. And you know, he was like this massive like underground radio, underground like illegal radio DJ in Miami. And you know, he's made beats, like trust me, he's made some shit. But what it is now is
you have access to it.
He has access, right? And the reason why he probably has access is because like he worked himself to the bone, and then his brain, like the sphere of his creative influence just got so big that it's like I can't afford to make beats. That's what it is. And like the same thing with like a Pharrell, like look at, you know, he's designing the entire campaign for Happy. Like you know how much money that guy makes? God damn. How many streams he's getting? Because like he's not like, oh well, I have to hold the video camera. Like no, like he doesn't, you know. But he also, I believe, considers himself a photographer. Like he legitimately likes photography.
Yeah, he's very big.
So like he's exploring, and that's the way. And Prince, you know, learned 50 different instruments or whatever. Like, so for me, you know, it's kind of like it's my duty, and it also is just like the smartest thing to do, to learn how to do all these things. You know, I've made music videos all on my own using like a gimbal on a phone, and we still use that. Like some of the video that y'all are gonna see on this big mixtape video, it looks absolutely dope, and it's filmed on the phone that's in my pocket right now. But I didn't like film all of it. Like I had somebody do like 80% of the work, and then it's like, okay, well I don't want to spend another $600. So I'm gonna just do this myself because it's necessary. But that allows me to actually get this work done, you know, to combine, you know, the knowledge that I have with others, to be able to say, hey, I can actually communicate with you as a videographer and say, this is what I want, this is what I need.
What you're looking for.
And you know, the reason why I know that this is really important is because like it's come to a point now where, for instance, with videography, I've organized the resources that I have to be as flexible as possible, to the point that I can go to a random person in the crowd and say, here, hold this, keep my head in the middle, and then I'll get the footage that I actually want, and it'll actually look good. And that's when you know you're doing something right, because like I can just call my brother and say, hey, like I need you for 30 minutes, like could you just quickly help me, because I can't hold the camera myself or whatever. And you know, you're thinking like, okay, well, how do I make all this video when it costs all this money? It's like, yo, like it costs me $0 to make a music video. It costs me $0 to make a song. And I can do it every day. I could make an album in 7 days if I wanted to. If I had the time, I could.
Do you work full time?
I do,
well?
yeah. But so I work. I work for this philanthropy group, this philanthropy organization that does a lot of stuff in the arts called the Hasty Pudding. And I won't go too deep into that because I like to keep things separate. But like,
this is more about the time management, and I'm like, all this.
But because I was a member of the organization, and like shout out to them, because like they brought me in knowing like that I'm an artist, and knowing that like I was going to help them out as much as I can, and that they were doing this massive service to me by giving me the ability to do this work, to come in and work for them relatively flexibly, and so that it's made sense. It's, you know, it's way better than working at a Starbucks. Like I'm lucky, but you know, again, that's what it is, right? It's like you start somewhere and you start problem solving. How do I get from here to where I want to be? And I have some things that I've been very, 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 very lucky to have. Like being able to say, like I went to Harvard, obviously, like that has helped me out a lot. But I also honor that by actually putting in work. You know, like I'm not coming in and be like, yo, like, well, I went to this school, and so like you should just listen.
Yeah,
to me.
exactly.
You know, like,
it's like my work speaks for itself as well.
Yeah. And like again, that 2-hour period where like I'm struggling to figure out who they are as an artist, like that's what matters. And maybe like like a year and a half ago, that Harvard brand thing was a thing that got me in. But near the end, it was the fact that I've worked with 18 different artists, and now I can get the 19th or whatever the case, you know?
Right.
So you have to move on from that. And every single person who's listening to this, probably they're somewhere, they're at some point, they've got some things, they don't got other things, and all it is how do I move forward. All it is how do I organize those resources over time. And it may take years. I mean, I've been producing for 8 years, and I've been sucking for 7.5 years, you know what I mean? Like, and I still suck at a lot of things, but that's what the journey is.
Yeah, not giving up, staying consistent, exactly.
It's your passion.
Yeah.
You're interested in it.
That's
You've
what
been
it is.
following your heart, and it's
Yeah,
not
that's
doing
what
it because your parents are telling you. You're doing it because you
Yeah,
know
you love
in your
it.
heart that you need to be doing it.
So what's next for you? The next 6 months, year or so, what are you trying to achieve and accomplish?
Well, you know, this mixtape was practice.
Okay.
It's absolutely practice. You know, like I'm learning how to do a whole lot of things here. I'm learning how to combine the Facebook marketing and the relationship building and the producing and all this, and like how it actually flows. And, you know, learning the song publishing stuff, even, you know, like learning how to do it right. Like I maybe 2/3 of the way into this process, I had a conversation with my boy Key, who manages Radar, does a whole lot of great stuff. He's over at Phoenix Down. Just, you know, when you talk to him for 10 minutes, you already know that he's a legend. He's like that kind of guy, right? And, you know, because I shared my plan with him, and he said, yo, there's a bunch of things that are not right about this plan. And I could tell that he knew that he wasn't taking risk by saying this to me at all, because there's like a 95% chance that I'll go, yo, fuck you, like, you don't know what you're talking about, or whatever, because most people would probably do that, right? Especially this late into the process. And, you know, like, it was a painful conversation, because it's like, you need to up your
Sometimes you
game
need to
more.
hear that, too.
You need to up your game more. But again, like, I've been really lucky to have a lot of people point out to me, like, hey, like you aren't your music, you aren't your plan, you're just you. And as soon as you take anything personally like that, you're kind of you're missing the point of it. You know what I mean? Like the plan was based off of certain information that I had, and, you know, certain knowledge that I didn't know I didn't have. So him saying, hey, like, there's some things, like, this is overall great, but there's some things here that really are wrong, and you should know that they're wrong. And I'm telling you this not because I'm trying to be a jerk, but because I actually I want to help you. Right. And like, you know, it was one of those things where, like, I was thankful for two things. I was thankful to him, and then I was also thankful that I actually had the ability, like, within the course of the conversation, to like within maybe 5 minutes get over the fact that I was disappointed that he didn't think my plan was perfect. You know what I mean? And then listen, and just listen.
Well, it's still your project. It's still your baby, right? So there's still that level of like onus and protectiveness that goes into it. But then, like you're saying, it's bigger than you. So because it's bigger than you, you take a bite of that humble pie, and you're like, let me listen to what you got for me. You know, let me listen to the perspectives that I didn't think about myself.
And that's, by the way, that's why, like, I call it practice.
Yeah.
I mean, even at the release event, like, you know, the music, and haters will say, like, oh, well, it should have been the final, but it wasn't the final version. There's still songs that I'm working on right now, and that's the beauty of the technology today, is like, you can just, like, if it's going to be released on the 7th, you can keep going till the 6th, or the 7th, 30 minutes before.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Before it actually
drops. And like, you know, SoundCloud, like, that's the difference, by the way, between SoundCloud and Spotify. I don't really like Spotify. Like, I love it as a tool, as a consumer. I love it. But as an artist, like, it's not useful to me, because when I put the music up, the only reason why I put something on Spotify is so I can say, oh yeah, I'm on Spotify. That's the only reason. Because all the work that I need to put in, like, the work I need to put in is, like, you put the song up on SoundCloud, you test it, you see how it does, and then you go back into the studio and you edit it, you make it better. That's kind of the way that I'm going about this. And it's interesting, by the way, because there have been people who have said, I'm not willing to get on the project, or I'm not willing to move forward with other steps in the process until I feel like it's perfect or whatever. You know what I mean? So and that's also been valuable because it's forced me to like maintain deadlines. It's forced me to like be flexible with my process. But on the whole, the really cool thing has been that like we know that everything that we do is just a proof of concept for the next step. You know, we know that like there's going to be imperfections everywhere. We know that it's going to be rough in certain ways. Like, you know, if you're going to do it, like using a phone, you know, even though it gets great video, it creates limitations. Like it's really hard to get low light, for instance, on a phone. Like you can't really do great nighttime stuff. Sometimes you learn like halfway into the project about like a new setting that just like revolutionizes the phone as a video camera for you. Like that's literally happened to me. Like I put out a whole music video and then the next day it was like, oh, like here's manual focus. And what does that mean? Oh, now it looks like you're literally filming with a DSLR. Like now we're and I was like, oh, I wish I knew that I had it or whatever. But that's why I say this is practice. And if I were to have gone into that conversation and said, yeah, no, fuck you, like you don't know. Like if I'd done that, that would have completely like missed the point of the tape. If I'm saying that this is a story of my self-development, then I damn well better self-develop myself. You know what I mean? And like, you know, again, like these artists have given me so much, and just the process of doing it, the process of putting together the event, you know, I learned some things. Like some people said, hey, like the event on the whole was great, but like maybe you could have broken it up in this way, or maybe you could have gotten some damn air conditioning, you know, like it was hot.
It was hot as shit, I'll say that.
But, you know, a whole bunch of things that, and again, it's like, are they saying that you aren't doing what you need to be doing? No. They're saying, here's another thing that you can
make it better.
And I do notice in the moment, like, because I'm not somebody who's good at like hiding my facial expressions. So like I've had people say, oh, like, are you frustrated? I'm like, no, like I'm just like getting myself in the game to listen to you, because I'm going from a place of, okay, well, like I'm good to go, like I've done everything I need to do, to, oh, like now there's this new piece of information that I have to grapple with. There's still more work to be done. But that's also like the beauty of it, that's the point of it, it's the process. So like, you know, that's kind of the thing that keeps me going. It's the point of the mixtape. And in terms of what's happening in the next 6 months, it's going to be more of that. You know, we actually have some dope follow-up records. We have one of the records on the tape, I'm not going to say which one. We have a whole second version of the record that has another batch of artists on it that are going to match that record. And it's going to be a whole thing. It's going to be dope. Like, I have a lot more music to come out. The Cold Call continues. You know, we're going to do a 7-episode season. And then once we finish that out, we're going to invite everybody who's been involved in the mixtape, who's been involved in the project. And we're going to essentially do like an indie film showing. Like we're going to show the whole thing, turn it into a party, and sort of package it really nicely, put a bow on it. And then, you know, from there, I think, you know, I just want to get to work. Like I want to really start grinding, like working with more artists, you know, working as a songwriter, working as a producer, working as an artist. Like I think performances are really big. You know, I kind of behind on the performance front, with good reason, right? Because it's like, you know, you're trying to develop yourself.
Exactly.
But at least I know it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like at least I know that there's work to be done there. But it's just continued development. Like there's so many sides to it. When you're trying to develop yourself as an artist, because, you know, you have to have the sound right, you have to have the image right, you have to be a great performer, or at the very least a solid performer. I think that I've learned a lot from these artists in terms of the making of songs, and hopefully the next step is like actually performing with them and like taking in that energy and like, you know, giving them some opportunities to like do something larger than life together. You know, we're working on a couple of show opportunities. We have like some early shows that are like before the record drops, where we just do some it's like previews. You know, we're testing it out, right? It's like, how do we perform together? What is it like? What does it feel like? And, you know, we're all going to get better as a result of that process, and we're going to know that it's practice. We're going to know that it's a development process, and then Come late August, it's going to be a much more like major show. And I've thrown a lot of parties. Like I've thrown a lot of parties. So like, I think the cool thing will be that I'll be able to bring in my DJing skills for this kind of like unique like combination of live and DJing, getting behind and in front of the decks both at the same time. So we're gonna do something kind of like that. That's the current plan.
So a lot more room for creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing so much, right? So you're working. You're in the work of philanthropy. You're doing this. You're a DJ. You're a singer. You're a musician. You're a producer. You're a visionary. Seriously, you do a lot, and I mean, we can continue to interview you all night, literally, because I mean, again, your knowledge and your perspective continues to go. So, but unfortunately, we do have to bring our show to a close. But I don't want to just end there, though. Typically, we ask people to let us know where anybody can follow you. But before I do that, I would say if you can leave our listeners with any last words of advice and love and just perspective on the vision, what would that be? And then close out with where people can follow you and stay connected.
Whew. Yeah, man, like you got to start somewhere. And like I think that like the resources are literally there. Like they're there for the taking. Period. You can get like an MBA worth of education for free. But you just have to put in the work. That's it, right? And I stand by it. Like I've had successes and failures during this mixtape, and the successes have basically amounted to I showed up and I did the work, or I showed up, I did it, it turned out it wasn't the right way, so I did it again, and then I did it the right way. Or sometimes it took 5 tries or 10. But there's something to be said for persistence, and there's something to be said for like yo, you just gotta like be clear about what it is that you want, and you gotta spend time, and you have to constantly be refreshing that. You know, the best advice I could give to anybody: write in a journal every day. In the morning, not at night. Write in a journal, 2 pages in the morning, and it doesn't matter what you write, just write.
Just free write.
You know, free write. It could be all the shit that you're stressed about. It could be about a relationship. It could be you're organizing yourself around what you want to do business-wise. But if you do that, you're clearing your head, because thinking, like the way that we think is we listen, we write, and we speak. So listening, you're taking in new information. Speaking is kind of like synthesizing information and giving it to the next person. So that's like the end of it. And then in the middle is writing. And writing is the most incredible invention that humankind has ever created, because it used to be that people had to like remember everything and then pass it down. Right? But when you write something, you get to let it go. Because you've written it. It's like, well, oh, I already did that. I already wrote that. I don't need to think about that again. I already processed that. And then you can come back to it and review it as well, and see how far you've come. But like, it's kind of like, you know, you have a pebble in your shoe, and like you're just not willing to take the shoe off to get it out. It's like, but then you finally take the shoe off, you take the pebble out, and it's like a breath of fresh air. And it's just the ultimate. Like, if you want to move forward in life, write in a journal every day. Period. And read, Think, and Grow Rich. And find a team.
That's it.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Where can people follow you?
I was like, where can people follow?
AlexanderPadei.com. That's AlexanderPadei.com. We got to sign up for the mixtape. The mixtape is like out now. Like, we're putting out a record a day, and we got interviews of all the artists talking about their creative processes. We got videos. Even if you're coming in late, you can see the whole thing, because there's like a page that has all the old days. So you can come in, and there's all these discounts for merchandise and stuff at the end and for the show that you only get if you sign up. So come in, check out the story. It's very easy to find when you go into AlexanderPadei.com. Otherwise, mixtape's coming out August 7th, as is the mixtape video, which is going to be absolutely bomb, 30 minutes. I don't think anybody's made something like this before.
It's different.
Period.
That's awesome.
So when that comes out, it's going to be an absolute bombshell.
You have a viewing party?
We are going to have a viewing party.
All right. Well,
We are
we'll
going to
be
have a viewing
there.
party. Absolutely.
We'll
Excited to have you.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much,
man.
Alex.
Great.
Continue to do
Yeah.
the work, continue to set the tone for Boston, letting producers DJs, singers, musicians, all of that know that you can have a vision, you can have an idea, bring it to life, but you can also bring in other artists into that for full execution. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
All right.
Yes, that was the Urban Collective interview for this week.
Yes,
It's your
yes.
man NIC.
And it's your first lady, Bernadine Truth.
We'll be right back.
All right.
That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.